Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for November 24th, 2025. What I'm going to be reporting today is that the United States is moving toward the edge of political chaos. We're seeing this with the war continuing in Ukraine and steps being taken by President Trump to end it, the genocide not fully ended in Gaza, and a potential war looming in this hemisphere against Venezuela. Also, the calls for the nuclear arming of Japan and Germany, something that's quite ominous. So the world continues to be dangerous. Cracks are appearing within the United States, within parties, within the general population, and even within Trump's base of Make America Great Again. So let's take a closer look at these developments, because these will determine events over the next days and weeks ahead. Let's start with Ukraine. President Trump put out a peace agreement, a proposed peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia. And there are meetings going on over this. There was a meeting in Geneva over the weekend, which included the United States, the Europeans, and Yermak, Zelensky's advisor. And there's a great deal of disinformation and chaos around this, but let's go through what we know. First of all, Zelensky is weakened by the corruption scandal and by the unpopular war in Ukraine, in which you have growing numbers of people deserting from the army, as well as continuing large numbers of dead on both sides, but especially on the Ukrainian side. And this corruption scandal is really taking its toll, because here you have the Europeans talking about major contribution to the war at a point at which it's clear that a lot of the money that's gone to Ukraine already has been siphoned off by the kleptocrats around Zelensky. Now, additionally, if President Trump decides to withhold any further funds, that puts the pressure on Europe, and the Europeans are facing terrible economic conditions on their own. So there's a panic going on. The Europeans are betting on a war as their economic policy. Not a very good idea. Now, you also have a targeting going on of Trump's inner circle, with an article in the Kiev Independent targeting Witkoff. The article says Witkoff pushed Ukraine sympathizers out of the White House. Well, that's a good thing. Why should there be sympathizers for war in Ukraine when President Trump ran for president saying he's going to end the war? But the targeting of Witkoff shows that the people behind the Ukraine war are going to resort to whatever they can to keep the war funding going. Then you also have Rubio's meeting with Yermak in Geneva. Now, Rubio is someone who has no basis for being trusted. The little Marco from 2016, when President Trump attacked him, Narco Rubio, as we're calling him these days, because of his connections to the Central American drug trafficking, he's pushing for a war with Venezuela. And apparently the buildup there is continuing, and the threat is very serious and has to be taken so. Now, then you have, with Trump focused on Ukraine and Venezuela, a growing breakdown of the ceasefire in Gaza. And of course, Netanyahu is an opportunist. He'll take advantage of whatever opportunity he has. Cracks in the Trump administration, go ahead and push it. And so over the weekend, there were a large increase in confrontations between Palestinians and Israeli forces, an increase in the numbers dead. And this situation is going to continue to worsen because Netanyahu is committed, as are the war hawks in the United States and Europe, to continuing these wars. And these wars are bankers' wars, which I'll get to in just a moment. Then you have Foreign Affairs magazine, and I mentioned this at the top, talking about the necessity for Japan and Germany to get nuclear weapons for self-defense. The Japanese are now moving missiles on the islands closer to Taiwan. There's a incredible war buildup going on there, and this is something which is quite both preposterous but then dangerous. Now, as all this is going on, don't forget the economy. We pointed this out at the end of last week. There are warnings of a 2008-style liquidity crisis. Remember what happened in 2008? The bubble popped. The real estate bubble popped. The mortgage-backed securities bubble popped. Insurance companies collapsed. Long-standing investment banks collapsed. And it cost the U.S. taxpayer between $20 and $28 trillion in bailouts. And who was bailed out? The too big to fail banks and the insurance companies. Now this time, according to Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan Chase, it's 10 times bigger because of the explosion of derivatives transactions and new financial instruments. Dimon's figures were it cost $14 trillion net expenditures from the U.S. Treasury to do the bailout in 2008 through 2011. It's $14 trillion. He's saying today it will be $140 trillion, 10 times larger. How is that not going to trigger massive inflation? Now, at the same time, there are signs that the artificial intelligence bubble and the tech bubble are starting to implode. Now, that's not surprising, but here's the problem. The limited amount of credit available in the United States is going into those two sectors, and crypto also. And so there's not much left for the rest of the economy. With the deficit a serious problem, the total debt closing in on $40 trillion, how are they going to cover this? More printing? More funny money? And what you can see is that the war buildup is a part of this, spending for war, which they think will flow over into the rest of the economy. So we also hear that the repo market is strained. Well, that happened before in 2019 to 21. And it was followed by quantitative easing, which caused inflation and a shutting down of many, many businesses, which was done on top of the whole COVID so-called health scare. So these are considerations that are on top of the dangers of war. Now, in U.S. politics, we see the effect this is having. We saw the Trump-Marjorie Taylor Greene flap play out last week, where one of the most loyal supporters of Trump, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, came under brutal attack from President Trump, who called her Marjorie Traitor Greene. She was receiving death threats, and as a result, she announced that she's going to be retiring from Congress in January. Now she's talking about a possible run for president. But what did she say is key here? She went back to America first. Why are we spending money to fight a war or to impose a genocide in Gaza, giving Israel who knows how many billions of dollars, when American families are hungry? Jobs are scarce. People are losing homes. And she warned that we're heading into a very profound economic crisis, while the America First movement is somewhat quiet. Now, she's not quiet, and neither is Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. Carlson is in a battle with Ben Shapiro, who's an Israel firster. Then you have the other thing which is confusing many people, Donald Trump's friendly meeting with Mamdani, the mayor-elect of New York City, supposedly a socialist. The meeting was very cordial, and what were they talking about? The need for affordable housing in New York City, the need to shore up the safety structure of infrastructure, police protection, schools for the poor. And the growing number of poor in New York City are not being served. And so you saw a relatively friendly discussion between Trump and Mamdani. So what's going to happen there? Well, we're seeing, as I said, these fractions multiply, the divide within the country, within the people of the country, within the parties growing, and this is where we're seeing the roots of chaos. Now, on top of this, I have just completed the second part of my EIR study called Who or What Was Jeffrey Epstein? And it's going to come out toward the end of the week on the EIR Online, which you can subscribe to. If you can't wait till the end of the week, send me an email and ask me for it, and I'll send you the pre-publication copy. So you can send me the email at harleysch@gmail.com. So that's what I've got for you. It's, as we're saying, very tumultuous, very chaotic, because we're seeing the end of a system, a collapse of a system that's been in place in Western civilization for 500 years. And this is having an implication that's shaking up the whole world. And it's waking up a lot of people. And if you're one of those waking up, get with us. Help us make sure that we get out of this without more wars.